You never expect a war to start in the same house where you once played Monopoly on rainy afternoons. But grief is fertile soil for greed, and Amanda had always been a master at planting seeds when no one was watching. Our parents died within 6 months of each other, Dad of a heart attack he never saw coming, and Mom of grief so dense it seemed to rot her from the inside out. The doctors blamed her cancer. I blamed the silence that fell after he was gone. If you enjoy the content, subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're from. Amanda and I weren't close anymore. Childhood had bonded us through scraped knees, piano recitals, and a shared disdain for Aunt Judy. But adulthood frayed things. She stayed in state, climbing the corporate ladder at some retail conglomerate. I moved around college, internships, now a freelance photographer living light. Our calls had grown polite, rare, strained. Still, I believed in family. I came home to bury my parents, to read the will, and to honor what I thought we had left. Mom and Dad had done the responsible thing, drafted the will years ago. Everything was evenly divided. The house, the modest life insurance, the jewelry, the investments. No surprises. No complications. At least, none written in ink. The house, they said, was to be jointly inherited. If we couldn't agree on what to do with it, we were to sell and split the proceeds. Fair. Simple. Amanda didn't flinch at the reading. She even squeezed my hand. But she moved in the next day. She told me it was temporary. Just until we figure it out. I wanted to believe her. It started with a text. Hey, can you come by tomorrow? I want to show you some changes I made to the house. Changes. When I arrived, I hardly recognized it. Mom's embroidered curtains gone. Our family portraits replaced with abstract art and black and white photos of cityscapes Amanda had never visited. The couch we had since the 90s? Reupholstered. I walked upstairs and found my old bedroom sealed shut. The handle had been removed. What the hell, Amanda? She was in the kitchen, sipping red wine in yoga pants. Oh, that room's storage now. I figured since you don't live here. I own half of this place. She smiled, that slick, disarming kind of smile she used to talk Dad out of grounding her in high school. Technically, yes. But let's be real, you're not exactly the domestic type. Then came the bombshell. I've decided to stay. Permanently. You're never here. It's better for both of us. I asked if she planned to buy me out. She shrugged. Eventually. That night, I checked the county property records on a whim. My heart froze. The deed had been transferred. Solely to Amanda. Filed 3 weeks earlier. Signed, stamped, filed. I stared at the screen, bile rising. Her voice echoed in my head, it's better for both of us. Confronting Amanda didn't go well. She didn't even pretend to deny it. She just went cold. I deserve this house, she said. I took care of Mom and Dad in their last years. Where were you? Sending postcards from Berlin? I was working, I snapped. And I flew back every time they needed me. Not enough, she hissed. And besides, Mom told me before she died. She wanted me to have it. All of it. That's not in the will. She didn't have time to update it. That line, that smug, passive manipulation, was her signature. I walked away that night and hired a lawyer. Amanda had forged my signature on the deed transfer. Her friend, a notary, witnessed the document except I'd never been in the state that day. My lawyer compiled every piece of evidence, my travel history, our parents' wills, the digital timestamp inconsistencies, even the handwriting analysis. We didn't sue her right away. First, we waited. Let her get comfortable. Let her settle in, redecorate, brag to her friends, post pictures of her new forever home online. She even changed the mailbox nameplate to a Whitmore, like I'd never existed. Then we filed. Amanda arrived in court with a fresh blowout and a $1,000 handbag. She looked more like a real estate agent than a defendant. But it was over before it began. The judge didn't even let her speak for long. The forged deed was invalidated. The notary had already flipped, admitting Amanda had pressured her into signing a document without a witness. The judge called it an obvious act of premeditated fraud. Then came the part that finally cracked Amanda's mask. My lawyer requested a partition by sale. Under the law, when co-owners of a property can't agree, a judge can order the sale of the property and divide the proceeds. Amanda cried out, "You can't! This is my home. I put everything into it." The judge simply said, "Then you should have followed the law." Amanda had 30 days to vacate. She begged, threatened, tried to fake a reconciliation over coffee. I told her she had 1 month to take her things and go. When the house sold well above market value, Amanda's cut went straight to legal fees and debts she'd been hiding. My share? I used it to buy a small cottage an hour out of town. Nothing flashy. Just peace and space, and something no one could fake their way into. I brought one thing with me from the old place. Dad's porch swing. Hung it on the new deck, where I sipped coffee and watched the sun rise over a quiet lake. Amanda doesn't visit. She sends the occasional card, usually empty apologies or veiled resentment. I never reply. Because I finally understand what my parents meant when they said, "The house doesn't matter. The people in it do." Amanda tried to steal my inheritance. I made sure she never forgot what it cost her. You can learn a lot about a person by the car they drive. Some wear their truth in leather interiors and showroom shine. Others, like Melanie, buried theirs beneath the rumble of a stolen engine. She rolled into our family 3 years ago, all gloss and smiles, the new wife of my Uncle Ray. He met her at a property convention in Vegas, brought her home like a prize, and declared that she was not just his new wife, she was his business partner, his future. To be fair, Melanie looked the part. Sleek, blonde, designer heels clicking like clockwork. She spoke in corporate buzzwords, always dropping names of big franchises like they were old friends, especially one, Promax Realty. She claimed she was about to launch her own franchise under them. Said her office would be a flagship hub. Told Ray to invest. He did. So did others. Including me. When she found out I was studying graphic design, she asked me to help create her branding logo, digital banners, pamphlets, the works. "You'll be the genius behind the empire," she told me. "It'll be great exposure." I asked her flat out if she'd pay me. "Of course," she said, brushing it off like a fly. "This is business, not a favor." That was my first mistake, believing exposure would come with a paycheck. What followed was weeks of hell. She hated every draft I sent. Changed her mind constantly. Refused to give feedback until deadlines were missed, then screamed that I was unprofessional. I spent hundreds on materials and shipping. When I asked for reimbursement, she ghosted me. Then one day, she called out of the blue. "I need a mural painted in my new office. You'll fly out next week." I laughed. "I still haven't been paid for the last work." Her tone shifted. "People like you should be grateful. I'm giving you experience." Click. That night, I drafted a letter with my university's legal advisor. She was to stop using any of my work immediately. I sent her an invoice politely, even offering a family discount. 2 hours later, my mom called. Melanie just called me, screaming. What the hell happened? I explained everything. My mom was silent for a beat. Then she said, "She's done this before. To all of us." And then she called Promax. What we found out next made my blood run cold. Melanie wasn't affiliated with Promax at all. She had been using their name, logos, and presentation decks illegally, passing herself off as a high-level agent. Worse, she had convinced Ray that they were financing her brand new $80,000 Cadillac Escalade. Spoiler, they weren't. She had opened 2 credit cards in his name, maxed them out for the down payment, and used forged emails to keep him in the dark. And all of this unraveled because she wouldn't pay me for a logo. The truth came faster than an airbag deployment. After my mother's call to Promax, their regional director followed up personally. Melanie wasn't just unauthorized, she was impersonating a licensed corporate entity, using their branding and presentations and even claiming to host company-backed seminars. Legal proceedings were hinted at. Quietly. The kind that end in cease and desist orders and permanent license revocations. That was Tuesday. By Thursday, my Uncle Ray had pulled his credit report. He didn't say much when he saw it. He just sat at the kitchen table with a bottle of rye, staring at the numbers like they were a death certificate. 2 credit cards. $45,000 in debt. His name. Her fingerprints. She said it was all business-related, he murmured. I said nothing. Let the silence hang like the reek of gasoline in a closed garage. Then, with a shake of the hand that once signed her loan applications, he called his lawyer. And that's when the real revenge began. Ray didn't yell. He didn't confront her. He played her game with a better poker face. He quietly had all joint bank accounts frozen. Had the lawyer draft paperwork to begin divorce proceedings. Contacted Promax's legal team and offered to cooperate fully, so long as he was removed from any legal proximity. He even contacted the dealership. You see, the Cadillac Escalade was still under her name, but financed with his credit. He reported the vehicle as obtained through fraud and identity theft. The bank's fraud unit opened a case. Within days, the Escalade was repoed. Right from the salon parking lot where Melanie had just emerged, coffee in hand, keys out. Gone. They say she screamed. I wasn't there, but Ray got a call minutes later. She left 6 voicemails. The last one was just her crying. When Melanie came home that night, it was all gone. Ray had already moved into a short-term rental. Changed the locks. Left her 2 suitcases and a printed spreadsheet detailing the fraudulent charges. Each line item highlighted in pink. She had nowhere to go. Her social media fell silent. The constant feed of motivational quotes and luxury selfies stopped. We heard through her sister that she was crashing in a motel on the edge of town. And the final twist? Ray filed a report with the state's real estate licensing board. They launched an investigation. Turns out, Melanie had lied on her licensing application too. Falsified past employment. Claimed to be licensed in another state. When the audit hit, her entire career was revoked. Not suspended. Revoked. She can't even sell a timeshare now. Months later, I got a check in the mail. It was from Ray. A reimbursement for every invoice I'd submitted. Full amount, plus a personal note. Sorry I didn't see her for what she was. Thank you for being the first to stand up to her. You were the spark. She was the fire. Ray. I never cashed the check. I framed it. A trophy of survival. And Melanie? Last I heard, she was working part-time as a leasing agent for a sketchy apartment complex, driving a rusted Honda Civic with peeling tint. And me? I graduated with honors. Started my own design firm. Now when I get asked about exposure instead of payment, I smile and tell them about the woman who lost a Cadillac, a license, and a life she stole, all because she tried to stiff me on a logo. I didn't notice him at first. The man next door had moved in a month before I met him. Or rather, before his drone did. He was the type of neighbor you didn't want but couldn't ignore. Let's call him Greg, a man with an ego bloated by cheap tech and the illusion of control. He flew his drone like it was a weapon of dominance. It hovered in front of bedroom windows like a digital voyeur, zipped down the street as if mocking traffic laws, and worst of all, buzzed over my backyard like a persistent, mechanical hornet. Now, my backyard wasn't anything extravagant. A grill, a patch of grass, and Bear, my Malamute. Bear wasn't just a dog. He was 7 years of loyalty, fur, and unspoken therapy sessions. He'd been there when I graduated college, moved 3 times, and bought this modest home. So when that drone dove low, over and over, taunting him, spooking him into trembling in the corner like a bomb had gone off, I took it personally. I asked Greg, politely at first, "Please don't fly the thing over my yard. It's terrifying my dog." He chuckled like a villain in a bad sitcom. "It's a public airspace, bro, tell your dog to get used to the future." The police came once, after I made a report. They knocked on his door, issued a warning with a tone of boredom, then shrugged at me like they were done. No laws had been broken, they said. Not really. Weeks passed. Bear got more anxious. I caught him refusing to go outside during the day. His appetite dipped. I found him one afternoon, trembling in the laundry room because the drone had hovered inches above the fence again. I started recording everything. Angles, times, videos of Bear's reactions, close-ups of the drone model. It was tedious and exhausting, but I knew something would give. Then it did. It was late December. The sky was flat and cold, and the sun had dipped behind the trees early. I let Bear out, watching from the kitchen. That awful, whining buzz crept into the air again. Greg's drone, sleek, black, and smug, zipped over the fence. This time, Bear didn't flinch. He waited. The drone made its dive, lower than ever. And Bear launched like a furry torpedo. I saw it in slow motion, the twist, the snap of teeth, the way plastic and wires sprayed like confetti. The drone hit the ground in pieces. Greg stormed over within minutes, red-faced and sputtering like a man whose child had been dismembered. He screamed about property damage. About small claims court. About how I trained my dog to attack his aviation equipment. I shut the door in his face. Then the summons came. He wanted $900 for the drone. Another $300 for access denial, because I hadn't let him retrieve the wreckage right away. So I prepared. I wasn't going to just win, I was going to break him with truth. Greg showed up to court wearing a windbreaker and mirrored shades like he thought he was Top Gun. He strutted into small claims like it was a red carpet, holding a manila folder under one arm and smirking like he had already won. I showed up quiet, composed, with my own file, twice as thick and far more lethal. The judge, a woman with iron gray hair and no patience for theatrics, didn't waste time. Greg began his pitch. "Your Honor, this individual has a dangerous animal on his property that destroyed my private property and caused me emotional distress." I almost laughed, but kept my jaw tight. "Mr. Gregg," the judge said, tapping her pen. "Were you operating this drone over the defendant's fenced-in backyard?" "Yes, but..." "Were you given permission to do so?" He stuttered. "It's airspace. It's..." I asked if you had permission. "No." She nodded. "Proceed, defendant." I laid out my evidence like a surgeon lining up instruments. Photos of my backyard from multiple angles, fence height, no line-of-sight flight path that could have made it an accident. Videos, one by one, of the drone circling Bear, diving, taunting, buzzing inches above his head. Then I dropped the receipts. Vet bills. $700 for the X-ray. $250 for sedation. $400 for dental work after a chipped tooth. Another few hundred for anti-anxiety medication, soft food, and 2 follow-up appointments. I even printed out a hand-scribbled food journal, logging Bear's stress-induced appetite issues. I wasn't just fighting this man, I was showing how deep his cruelty had cut. The judge took her time flipping through the folder. "And the drone?" she asked. "Unregistered," I said. violating FAA regulations. He was flying out of visual range, too high, and too close to people and private property. I passed her a final sheet and email confirmation from the FAA that they'd received my complaint and had opened an investigation. Greg's smirk collapsed like a drone losing signal mid-air. The judge adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Gregg, it appears that not only were you harassing this man's animal, but your actions directly resulted in its injury. The defendant owes you nothing. In fact..." She turned to me. "Would you like to file a counterclaim?" "I already have," I said. Greg tried to protest, but I saw the exact moment he realized he was cooked. He slumped like his strings had been cut. The judgment: Greg owed me $1,892 in vet expenses, plus $300 for emotional distress, and a cease and desist order for further drone flights over my property. The FAA investigation didn't go quietly. I don't know what Greg told them, if he lied, if he minimized, but within a month, I saw a uniformed inspector walking around our neighborhood with a clipboard and a measuring tool. Greg's drone habits weren't a one-time offense. Apparently, he'd been buzzing over schoolyards, hovering over joggers, and even peeking through a few second-story bedroom windows. By the end of the month, Greg wasn't just out a few grand. He was fined by the FAA, flagged in their operator database, and required to take a certification course before he could fly anything again. His neighbors stopped talking to him. Some put up signs in their windows, "No drones." Yes, consequences. But that wasn't the real victory. The real victory was watching Bear, one spring morning, trot outside with a wag in his step, sniff the breeze, and flop down in the grass like he finally owned the sky again. Humiliation didn't sit well with Greg. For men like him, petty tyrants whose egos are stitched to their toys, losing isn't just a bruise. It's a betrayal of their own myth. The neighborhood heard about the court case, the fines, the FAA slap. Greg tried to act like it was no big deal, but his posture changed. He started avoiding eye contact. The strut became a shuffle. The yard he once kept obsessively trimmed went wild, weeds growing like dissent. Then the petty escalations began. First, it was the garbage. My bins kept tipping over on trash day, contents mysteriously strewn across the sidewalk. Then the notes: childish, anonymous things taped to my door. "Hope your dog gets put down for being violent. People like you ruin communities. Bet you trained him to kill." I documented everything. The police weren't thrilled to be involved in a neighbor dispute, but the file was growing. One more incident, they said, and it could be criminal harassment. Then came the night of the scream. It was around 3 a.m. when I heard it, sharp, panicked, echoing. I rushed outside with a flashlight. Greg's front door was wide open, one of his porch lights shattered. In his driveway was a wrecked box of electronics, its contents scattered, 2 new drones, unopened, lying in puddles. And Bear, alert and growling softly, was standing just inside our fence. Greg emerged moments later, limping, cursing to himself. When he saw me, he froze. "You think this is funny?" he spat. "I haven't touched anything," I said, raising my phone. "But I've been recording since I heard your little scream." He stormed back into the house. I found out the next morning, someone had egged his car. Not just egged, plastered. Syrupy yolk in every crevice, flower handprints smeared on the windshield like ghostly accusations. I didn't do it. But someone did. And when the neighborhood is fed up, justice comes from unexpected places. 3 weeks later, a for sale sign appeared in Greg's front yard. No announcement. No neighbors informed. No farewell barbecue. He packed his things alone, loading his car at night like a man on the run. I watched from my porch with Bear at my side, sipping coffee. The last time I saw Greg, he gave me a long stare, hollow, resentful, but also tired. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just stood still. Because sometimes, the best revenge is the silence left after the noise has gone. The peace you fought for returning. The air above your yard finally clear. Bear nudged my hand, tail wagging. I knelt beside him. You won, I whispered. Good boy.